I'm Seth Michael May.
I'm Sean Behrens.
I'm Abram Kaplan.
And I'm Judy Mayer.
And you're listening to
Obscuria Filmcast.
Greetings and welcome to Obscuria Filmcast. I'm your host, Abram Kaplan, and we will be joined momentarily by co-hosts Seth, Judy, and Sean. Today we will be discussing Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, 1989. Directed by William Shatner and written by David Lowery. Starring William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley. Captain Kirk and his crew must deal with Mr. Spock's long-lost half-brother, who hijacks the Enterprise for an obsessive search for God at the center of the galaxy. Reading the synopsis out loud, it almost sounds like it could be a really good film. And it also sounds like a blockbuster hit that has no business on a podcast about obscure films. However, you'd be mistaken on both fronts. This film is indeed awful, with a well-deserved 22% positive critical reception and 24% positive audience reception on Rotten Tomatoes. Yes, it's that bad. And it is indeed obscure. Having grown up with late 80s and early 90s Star Trek playing frequently on TV in the home, thanks to my pops, shout out to Dad, I was surprised that I had never even heard of this film, and that many committed fans of the Star Trek universe that I brought it up to, including my father, had never even seen it. So naturally, I sat with Dad to watch this steaming pile of, something, and we both got a good chuckle out of it. The movie is basically one big, long dad joke, so I couldn't think of anyone else that I would have wanted to share such a torturous experience with. In a moment, we will hear from Sean, who has a lot of explaining to do. Star Trek V is available to stream on the Paramount platform and for rent or purchase on most major platforms. If you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Leave a like and comment on one of our YouTube streams, and share a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all of your support and welcome your engagement on our weekly YouTube live streams. If you would like to suggest a film for future episodes and have the opportunity to participate in our live stream, please email us at obscuriafilmpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And now, here is our live discussion. All right. Sean, talk to me.
Sure. A couple of years ago when the pandemic happened, I was inside and I'm like, you know what? I never saw all the Star Trek films from 1 to 6. And I went through them again. And when I got to Star Trek V, I remember liking it as a kid, and I rewatched it and I liked it even more now. I rewatched it for this filmcast, and I was buzzing. I thought it was fantastic. You could check me out on Mr. Sean Behrens on Instagram and look at all those scenes I'm posting up there. But watching it again, I came up with a film essay. I know this isn't class, but this is kind of brilliant here. So the 80s had this old man, new age knowledge thing. Probably because of Reagan's image. Anyway, this gave media an opportunity for all the entertainers from the 60s to the mid-70s to cash in on the 80s, because old things were popular due to Reagan, right? That's how I see it. Anyway, I enjoy the cashed-in corniness that this movie offers because there is a levity that promotes a cathartic release. Not from a deep emotional movement based on performances, beauty, or artistic license, but this cashed-in corniness has a colorful, relatable facade that audiences can better imbue their personal experiences to the story. It does this by shaping. It does this by having the shape of the moral lesson as the central element. The moral theme circles back in the end, reiterated to answer the moral question being asked in the beginning.
I don't understand the word he's saying.
But the answer is not words at this point after finishing watching the movie, but the feeling we get when the movie creating a shape of that significance for the audience.
Careful.
And in this case, the moral message that was introduced in the beginning is that like our pain makes us who we are. That somehow if we give our pain over to someone else, that's the true freedom, and that's the moral lesson there. Like, is it worth to give up all your pain? Because if you do in the movie, then you're like following Cybok, and he raises a desert army pretty fast, and as well out through the whole movie. His power never really gets explained, but even members of the crew have this alliance to him throughout the whole thing, and he's kind of seen as a terrorist. But that all changes in the end, because Cybok really was searching for God, and sometimes you get disappointed. But you know, whoever you're with on that journey is your family, because there was a familial aspect to this too. Also, I love the beginning and the end, because they're on leave together, Spock, Kirk, and Bones. And it was just weird that they still like hang out together. They're not just serving on the ship, but they're hanging out together in this wonderful wilderness atmosphere, and it ends in there. But it has that scene where they're all singing "Row, row, row your boat" around the campfire, and to me that's just so incredibly endearing. Another thing about the Star Trek double trilogy is that every movie is like a different genre a little bit. It's all fiction, but the sub genre is there, because the first one is straight science fiction directed by Robert Wise. The second one, The Wrath of Khan, is more like a thriller. The third one, Search for Spock, I see that as a war movie. That's a war movie. And then The Voyage Home, the fourth one, that's a comedy. The fifth one, The Final Frontier, it's a kids movie. If you just look at it as like a kid's movie, it all fall into place. And the sixth one, The Undiscovered Country, is more like a political movie. So that's my opening explanation. I know nobody likes this film. I know it. But rewatching it again, it's just really complete and compact. And the story moves. There's no dull moments anywhere here. Also, when this movie came out.
Okay. So why do you think everyone hates it so much then?
Because it is kind of off. William Shatner directed it, and that's because Leonard Nimoy.
Did he really though?
Well, yeah, he did. He did. There was a production hell around this movie too, which changed the ending. The ending, Shatner wanted these like volcanic beasts walking around. And the studio said, we'll give you one volcanic beast. And they did test shots, and it looked horrible. That's why you have what you see now, which I think works just fine. So there was that. Also, the special effects in this film, they don't look good at all. Not really. Even 1980s Star Trek The Motion Picture has much better effects than this movie that came out 9 years later. So.
The effects in this movie are like out of date by a solid 15 years. Like they look like something from 1974.
Yeah, they're really bad because they were hurrying up the production.
Actually was sort of, to me, actually was one of the things that was redemptive about this movie. Like the bad special effects, actually, like the really corny, horrible moments, the like banter between the really corny banter that takes place at the campfire, and the really bad jokes sort of make it worth it. You know, like if it wasn't for that, I probably would have been just bored to tears. But
that's true. The package is rough, but the moral message is in there and throughout the whole thing, and carries you through. It's like a G.I. Joe.
What's the moral message?
It's that loyalty given freely gives us a certain will to live, but Cybok removes pain to gain loyalty directed to him, which is unstable and corrupt. By removing the individual's essence, which is like their pain.
Well,
I don't even know what that means.
Okay, I sort of get what he's saying, but I also think it's kind of ironic that he takes pain almost as if a god would, as he's in search for God.
Right. Beware false prophets. But in the end, he gets smited, and he sacrifices himself, and he knew he was living a false prophet life, which is a good message to give to a child.
Yeah, I will give Sean that. I still didn't like. It took me 3 times to sort of get through the movie. Okay, but I will say I did like the beginning. I liked the opening scene. I just did. It felt like it went to a totally different movie once he was free climbing it. I sort of lost it for me. Oh no, actually, I lost it when he free fell. That was where I was like,
Really? Because I kind of lost it at Dr. Spock saying, "I don't think you understand the gravity of this situation you're in."
Well, it was around there, but it was like it really sealed the deal. I kept just giving it more and more. Okay. But then when he started free fall, I was like, oh God, what are we in for?
It's a cute.
And I will say, so I watched it. I tried to get through it 3 different times. The first time I was with my husband. And he was just saying, what did they all just like say? Screw it. I'll just take the money and do another one and I'll just phone it in, you know, and he's a Trekkie fan. So he was
because they doubled their money.
Yeah. He was just mad about it. He was like, they just profited. It's a terrible movie. I don't even remember this. I think I walked out in the theater. That's what he was saying. And then the second time I tried to watch it, or I got through some of it, was with my 2-year-old. Who was sort of paying attention, pointed out some monsters. And then I will say, for some reason, when the Klingon leader came out with his big fro speaking another language and there was no subtitles, that kind of annoyed me. And I don't speak that language. My son said, "Daddy." And I was like, I don't know how he reminds you of your father, but I think that's hilarious.
Because he doesn't listen to his father. He just hears
I was like, maybe it's because you're running around just like yelling and it looks the same. I don't know. And then the third time I got through it was with my husband and his brother, who both grew up watching all the Star Trek movies. And what I will say they said was they were like, oh, this is terrible. It's terrible. It's awful. But then they remembered the last scene and they were like, oh, wait, I do like this part.
Yeah,
and then the ending scene with the whole God thing, and I forget there was like one line that why does God want the starship or something? Like, tell me why. I think
what does God need with a starship?
Yes, that's what it was. And so it was at that point that they sort of like
it was very Jewish. I could picture this being done by like a Yiddish theater troupe.
It's spiritual.
What does God want with the But what? Like, no, because Leonard Nimoy is a Jew,
and so is William Shatner,
and William Shatner is too. It is, what would God want with a
starship?
With a starship, what would God want with a starship?
What would God want with a starship?
I think that makes it great. It makes it because you're thinking. He like Kirk. Yeah, he fights and he's a lover, but he's always a step ahead. In all of it, he outthinks the other person. He doesn't beat him up. So, you know, there's that too. And he's true. That last scene was fantastic. I watched it 3 times.
When you say the last scene, are we talking about when they enter the edge of the universe and that weird bearded guy hologram is talking to them? But he's really just a reflection of Cybok or whatever.
Cybok. I uploaded a clip if you want to play it any time.
Yeah, I guess. With the one that
even those special effects were pretty good. It's the one where you see bones. You see the thumbnail.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, let's add that to the stream. I think the audience should have a chance to.
The god of Shakari would not do this.
Shakari. Look at this.
A vision you created. An eternity I've been imprisoned in this place. The ship. I must have the ship. Now, give me what I want.
Cybok! This is not the god of Shakari. Or any other god. I don't understand. Reveal yourself to me.
And it ends there. It gets better.
Okay. So my question is this: is that guy just is that a dream reflection? Is that a reflection of his fantasy that came alive and got trapped in this weird realm? And now this thing that he gave birth to in his imagination has a life of its own and it wants to destroy him?
I could explain.
Can you?
I read
Okay.
I read some fan lore,
Oh,
and
okay.
and there's no explanation. There's no set theory, but they think it's a member of the Q that got banished.
Oh, the
Also,
Q.
also in season 2 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, they had a being called a Dowd, Douwd or something. Look it up. And that creature also has great amount of power, not as much as a Q, but a Dowd also has deep feeling. Also, Cybok as a character is interesting as far as I'm concerned because he was a brilliant Vulcan logician, but he was a radical and he went away into the galaxy to master his emotions. So you have a logical approach to your emotions, which is juxtaposed, which creates an interesting character, as well as his costume. Because I'm not into cosplay, but I'd spend like $400 to get me that Cybok costume and walk around a convention and see who the true believers are.
And people would be like, "Oh, that guy went as Cybok from the kitty version."
I'd be like,
Yeah.
what does he say?
Okay, so
pain is
let me
familiar.
ask the hardcore Trekkies, like,
Couldn't
is
help but
this
notice your
Cybok
pain.
character unique to this film? Did he like never exist before
No,
or after?
no. I'll tell you something.
Correct.
When I went and saw this movie, people were actually bummed out because we thought the reason that Spock has a human mother was because Spock's father, Sarek, couldn't conceive with a Vulcan. And the logical thing to do was to conceive with Amanda, who's human, Spock's mother. So when the Cybok thing came around, it destroyed a whole wing of fandom and like pissed us off.
Why?
remember
Because it revealed that he was pissed off that he had a half human son.
That the reason that Spock was conceived is different than canon. They rewrote canon in the Final Frontier about Spock's birth.
Yeah,
And
like it's not like because he like the Spock becomes like, well, that was the only person your dad could have sex with, and Spock is the result. So he's always have a problem with his dad. But this is like, oh no, I had a crazy brother.
But I could explain the dad stuff.
Yeah, but what does the crazy brother have to do with him conceiving with a human?
Well, because the original story was he could only conceive with a human.
So this story screws it up because it says that he has a half brother who's actually fully Vulcan. And that ruins the whole. Okay, I get it. Okay,
but I could explain that that discontinuity because we know about Spock's birth from Spock, so that was his story. But because Cybok, we see Spock's pain in Cybok's melding, that we see that Spock's great pain is that his father Sarek rejected him at his birth for being half human. So when Spock gets to Starfleet Academy, that's the story he tells his friends because that's his secret pain, which is another reason I like this movies because they're still expanding on the characters. 21 years after first writing them, they're still expanding. And you found out about Bones shit, his father. Also, you realize that Kirk still thinks about his son because when Kirk said, our pain makes us who we are, he doesn't want to forget his son. And I just always thought that was an admirable choice.
I will say that the scene with DeForest Kelley and his dad is a really great scene that tragically is in this movie.
I like how they did it because you don't know where you are, but they used theatrical effects where they just put a projection of a cityscape on the window and they changed the lighting, and then all of a sudden we're in this scene. They didn't even change the background because they shot from the other side, and you still saw Spock and Shatner walking around. It was just kind of cool how they did that, but at least the attempt was there,
So originally there wasn't even going to be a Cybok character. Originally, I was reading Shatner wanted this to be about 80s preachers who were making tons of money, saying God told them that they need, a roller coaster or what have you, like Tammy Sue Baker and Jim Baker and Swaggart. So originally, Sean Connery was signed on to just be this preacher. And he had something else that he was doing at that time. They couldn't get him. So supposedly Shatner was just flipping channels, and Lawrence Luckinbill had done this show and this film that toured all over of LBJ. And he's like, I want that guy. So in a way, it's like that would be a dream come true for like an unknown actor, that you're going to get a role in this franchise. But I can't believe that the residuals were very good.
Well, that reminds me. Do you guys know where
brilliant.
do you guys know where the name of this planet Shakare comes from?
Mormonism.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't.
You're never gonna get it.
Chakra. Well, there's sounds like
Judaism.
chakra or chakra.
Okay. All right. Let me
Judaism.
let me break it down. They named it after Sean Connery in his honor.
Get the fuck out of here.
Shakare, Sean Connery. Yep.
That's awesome. I like that name.
I'm the only one who knows that. I'm the only one who looked this up on Wikipedia.
Man, I'm in Starfleet.
Listen.
I got other things to do.
Listen, yeah, they named it after Sean Connery in his honor because he was supposed to play that character.
He was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in '89.
That's how little self-respect these people had when they made this film. The guy who
It was
rejected the
fun.
part, they decided to name an entire planet.
They
after
needed
it.
a name. Like thinking of futuristic names is difficult. It's not easy. I'll tell you that. If anything, read some Isaac Asimov and just
No, you can
use
do
those
it.
names.
No, you just use this.
It's-
You don't even need to do that. I could do it with all your names. Seth Michael May, Semame, the planet Semame,
Semame.
Do Judy. Do
Semame.
Judy. Judy Mayer. What's that one?
Jumeba,
Jumeba.
Jumeba, planet Jumeba,
That's brilliant.
Put a box on it.
Mershaw Bear, Mr. Sean Barron's planet Mershaw Bear.
It's a bear. I think that makes it fun. That's what I'm thinking. It's a kids
Yeah.
movie. It's fun. You know, it's all right. It moves. Also, you noticed they had a stripper in the beginning who was a cat.
Mhm.
She had 3 breasts.
I
And
noticed
Total-
that.
Total Recall.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I
stole
was
the
asking
3
my
breasts.
dad during. I know. I was asking my dad during the film because like he was, more sentient than I was when this movie came out, and he watched a lot of Star Trek and he's really into sci-fi fantasy shit. I'm like, Dad. He pointed out. He's like, look, the woman has 3 breasts. I was like, yeah. Is this? And I was like, is this before or after Total Recall?
Before.
Because that's what I. So this was ahead of its time. Then
That's what I'm
Sean.
saying. There's good
Dude.
ideas here.
Yeah, I mean,
Also-
they came up with the 3-breasted woman before the Schwarzenegger movie. That is impressive.
Wait, why is it okay?
I don't know if
Hold
you're
on.
being
What am I
sarcastic.
missing? Why is the 3-breasted woman so?
Because
Because
Total Recall is a masterpiece. And
It's
they had a
famous.
3-breasted
It's
woman.
okay. Like I saw Total Recall when it came out, and I was like a child,
Yeah.
and I remember like, oh my God, 3 titties. That was
Yeah,
like,
like
there's a woman with 3 breasts, and it was like,
And you
oh.
see them.
And
The
I
character
remember
squeezes
that,
the nipples and stuff in the movie.
and it's all I remember
Yeah.
Okay.
from that movie. To be honest,
guess I'm not
I
a
don't
dude,
remember
so I don't-
anything
it doesn't-
else from Total Recall
This-
other than like Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it and a woman with 3 tits. And then
And the guy's head explodes.
I don't even remember that. I was
I
too
think I remember
preoccupied
that.
with the tits.
I
I
mean,
was
they
8
made-
years old,
Dude.
dude. How old was? What year was that? 1990.
90.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. My son probably would have noticed the boobies.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I liked? When Kirk, Spock, and Bones were in the brig together. That scene. I like that scene too. But I want to see that scene in an acting class. Like I want to see 3 actors doing that scene. Because it is kind of corny, but I just wrote that down and I wanted to mention, especially for Seth here. Like, do you think that over some work, some method work, do you think you could make this script any less corny?
No.
Well, actually, I want to say something and this is a dig at good actors who can't pull off shitty scripts. I think like these guys, most of them are good. I think they weren't really trying.
Yeah.
And I don't think I want to say that their acting was bad, not just because the scripts were bad. but their acting was particularly bad, even considering how bad the scripts were. What do you think about that, Seth?
I think all these actors are highly entertaining, and they've gotten into a thing about how they know their characters and they won't go beyond certain limits with them. And you know, a fish rots from the head down, and Shatner is known to be a real dick. And I think that even in the good movies like Wrath of Khan, you can see moments where even good actors like DeForest Kelley he's really not doing his thing. You know, at this point, at this point they're going to conventions. They know what the fans like. They're, you know, this falls into the theory where I'm like, you don't have to do good acting to be highly entertaining. But
listen, honestly,
you.
I don't have any proof other than my just deep intuition. But I think that, like most things in life, this film was William Shatner's fault.
Yes, it was.
That he's to blame for everything wrong with this film, and he's, you know, and I think he's a perfectly reasonable scapegoat for most of the world's ills.
So okay, so Leonard Nimoy directed Star Trek III: The Search for Spock and Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Both films were huge hits. Then Nimoy did 3 Men and a Baby, which was another huge hit. But way back when,
was he in that too?
No,
he directed it.
He only directed 3 Men and a Baby. But back in like the 60s, Shatner's like, whatever Leonard gets, I want. So Bill Shatner cashed in his chips. He's like, he did 2 movies. I want to do 1. And they said, okay, do you have an idea? And he's like, yes. But that idea had to morph because it was a production hell and it went very fast, that production. So there was problems and they did the best that they could. I like knowing that, seeing the movie, because I like seeing how they put it together. And I because that also makes it more creative of like, we just got to do this. What's the best way that we can do it now? But also, let me ask Judy here.
Yeah.
Without seeing the first 4 films.
Oh, yeah.
Even, you know, how did you the overall impression on this 5th film, just seeing it all by itself? Did it make sense or anything?
Not really. I think that's why I had such a hard time with it. And I did watch it with a Trekkie. I'll just say he's a Trekkie. I don't know. But he would be like, oh, he would sort of reference characters. And there were several times where he would like, this would probably have more of an impact on you if you knew the whole world of it. I'm a horror person. So I've never been into the Star Trek or the Star Wars franchises much.
Yeah.
So I just had a hard time following it. It sort of looked like, it reminded me of like bits where it's like scene here, scene here, scene here, but they don't totally go work together. For me.
Uhura was a stripper in this movie. She was Uhura. Lieutenant Uhura was a stripper.
Yeah. Well, the whole fan dance where she like lured them up was just so awkward. Like I felt like embarrassed for her. But not in like a shaming way, just like
they made you do this.
Why did you do? Yeah, like I didn't. That's sort of how I felt. It was just sort of like
this is
I don't know. It just had a weird feeling to me. It didn't feel like dirty or anything, but I was just like, it was more like, oh, come on.
Like, okay,
know,
so
like
even without that, even what Judy's saying, which I agree with, this woman is supposed to be like the voice and ears of the universe, right? Through the whole series, like she's the translator, like and
looks good while doing it.
And how are they gonna utilize her effectively in this one? They're gonna have her do a fan dance, which she's like 72 years old. And
she was 56. She was around 56, but she still feels. Let her feel sexy. Let her feel a little sexy. What?
There's a strip club in Hawthorne, New Jersey called Jiggles that we have to bring Sean to. If you like the Uhura dance in this movie,
let's do it.
Look up Jiggles.
They all laugh at my jokes. I like strippers like that because they laugh at my jokes. Thank you for laughing. That was a joke, everybody. Barely got a smile from me.
But I'm just like, how demeaning is that? This is a woman. Okay, this is a woman who did the first interracial kiss on TV and pissed off like the KKK. And so, how are you going to use her in this movie now that she's like old and not as well put together and the hottest thing on TV? You have her do a dance to attract a bunch of guys who look like street rats. Right?
They came right out of the
crackheads.
They liked it, man. They dug it, man. She was dishing
they
out.
haven't seen a woman in like 90 years, dude.
Hey, she knows.
It was just awkward and not good.
In other brilliant acting moments, I would like to hats off to David Warner has this thankless part as this scummy ambassador. He's the English guy. At the end, when there's peace, he decides to throw in that, like, maybe I'm going to nail this hot Romulan leader. He gives her this look. Like, now they reward him by, he comes back as Chancellor Gorkon, the Klingon president in Star Trek 6, and they bring him back as a Cardassian who tortures Picard in a two-parter that's really good. So that guy has played a human with a hard-on for Romulans, a Klingon and a Cardassian in as a result of this.
I know that episode, there are only 4 lights when Picard gets
there are only 4 lights, yeah. It's a great episode.
Cardassian has no relation to the Kardashian family.
No, Cardassian.
It sounds very similar, guys.
No, it's similar. It's similar, and I think that now in the world we live in, the Star Trek series should have a Kardashian playing a Cardassian.
It would be racist to do it any other way.
It would be racist to do it any other way, right?
Yes.
They
would love. One of them would love to do the fan dance.
Wait, speaking of these,
someone hasn't done like a series on YouTube of the Cardassians, where like a bunch of Star Trek fans to set up. I guess it's too hard to do the makeup and the long hair to get, but that would be a good one to do.
Well, speaking of different species of Star Trek creatures, my dad told me that when back in the day he had a friend who could speak what's the
Klingon?
Yeah, that the language is actually like elaborately written now. This guy could speak fluent Klingon, and he could translate literally almost any English phrase into Klingon. Thought that was pretty.
Someone wrote wrote
based
Hamlet
on Japanese
into Klingon. You can
somebody wrote Hamlet into Klingon. Yeah, what?
It's Klingon is based on the Japanese language. Like our language is like subject, verb, object. There's object, subject, verb. Like Japanese. Even the Klingons, they were based on Japanese culture way back in the day. They based them on like the Japanese samurai. That's why they're all into war and stuff. But also there was a familial theme in this film too, which I think is important for kids. So family in the beginning, we don't have families in the beginning. Then in the end, it's you do. It's the people you spend time with. It's people you search for God with. That's the theme. That's a good theme. That's a good theme. I think.
Mommy and Daddy don't love you, but when we send you to go work at the coal mines at Google, that'll be your family. Those people in the other cubicles.
Oh, American kids.
No, only if they take away your pain.
Yeah, they will.
They'll just be like, take your medicine.
Take your medicine.
Take your medicine. It's going to take away the pain and go back to
what
work.
The AI tells you.
Share it with me. And he goes in the thing. That voice of God in this, brilliant. I wrote down his name.
It's not God.
Yes, his name is George Murdoch, and I want him to narrate my.
What else has George Murdoch done?
I didn't look him up. Probably nothing else. I looked up. All right, I'll look it up. But I looked up Lawrence Luckinbill.
Did you notice who his nieces, once-time nephews were?
Oh, wasn't it Jerry Van Dyke or something?
No. His nieces, once they were his nephews, are the creators of The Matrix. The Wachowski sisters or brothers.
Siblings.
Or
there's
siblings. The
Kansas. Siblings. That dude's from Kansas, and he died in 2012 at the ripe old age of 81. Yeah, he did a lot of shorts, some TV, 2011, some TV.
He was a real actor, that guy. If you look at his resume, that guy
LA
was not.
Law,
Yeah,
Dragnet, the new Dragnet. Oh, Star Trek: The Next Generation. He was Admiral J.P. Hansen. Best of Both Worlds, parts 1 and 2. That's another thing. When this movie came out, Star Trek: The Next Generation had 2 seasons, so you had a lot of people coming. That's why I guess they got the budget. But I think
Yeah, Star Trek: The Next Generation. That was my favorite Star Trek stuff.
It's great. But I chose this movie also because it's made in 1989, just like Dream a Little Dream. 89. This is the epitome of the 80s because it seemed like Cybok was like what's his name from the Beatles, George Harrison, cashing in on that one song he had. Remember,
Layla.
My Sweet Lord.
To get it, to do it, to do it. All right, so that was George Harrison.
I got my mind set on you.
Yes, so they all cashed in, man. This is the ideas of the 80s cashing in.
How come they had no money for special effects if the movie before it was such a big hit? Like all the
because everybody else was taken. They rushed the production so fast. Industrial Light and Magic were already doing projects with other people.
Because we're watching these ships, cuts of ships from Star Trek 1 and Star Trek 3. Every time you see a Klingon ship, it's the old Klingon ships.
Yo, and they do stop motion for like the gunning things.
It's kind of anyway.
They put it together. That's the thing. It was hell. It was a production hell. It was 125 degrees in that desert. They didn't have a lot of water bottles. It was hell, but they still did it. And I just like that. I know how other people might not appreciate that stuff, but what I also liked, it moved fast, and I thought that was kind of fun and interesting. Why are you laughing?
You thought it moved fast?
You thought it moved fast? My mother turned
slow.
to me and she's like, "Doesn't this seem a little slow?"
Yeah.
To you at one point.
It took me 17 hours to watch it.
Yeah, it was incredibly slow.
What are you talking? All right.
How many hours is
I mean, the story doesn't even like the first 20 minutes, the stupid rock climbing and the camping and Yosemite. All
right, you know what we should do on this one? We've never done this before. What we should do is we should open up with we should have someone edit this. The Yosemite scene, okay? The Cybok's appearance, then Cybok doing his thing to DeForest Kelly, and then that's it. That's the whole movie. Those are the only good parts. And then they can see what was good about this movie without having to see the rest of it.
No, you have to throw the fan dance in just because it's awkward and weird.
Oh, and the fan dance because it's awkward.
It was
and the three-titted.
Or what about the scene where Dr. Spock reveals that Cybok is his brother?
Yeah, I think that was a great scene. That was in the break.
And he says, "No, that's impossible
because I happen to know
because I know you don't have a brother."
Technically,
really?
That's correct. I have
Whoever
a half
came
brother.
up with, yeah. And
that was a great
you're
scene.
incapable of lying because you are.
You know, it would be a good scene that they didn't put in. What if Nurse Chapel, because she always had the hots for Spock, stops having the hots for Spock, and she had the hots for Cybok? Now that was a missed opportunity, and Spock starts to get jealous because now there's nobody, and he shouldn't feel jealous because he's a Vulcan. Because that would
I would rock that Cybok outfit all day at a convention. I would say, man, I couldn't help but notice your pain. Put my hand on people's shoulders and shit, and see.
No one will be stopping.
I'll do it.
And then I'll go.
Are you going?
You?
Let's go. You want to go? What are you going to do?
I promised a friend I would go to a Star Trek convention. So yeah, I'll go with you.
I'll tell you this: I'd be Cybok in the Star Trek universe. I would either be Cybok or Garrick from.
I got to use this opportunity now that we're heading towards the end of the episode to say that I never was a fan of Star Trek growing up, other than the Next Generation, because that's the time I grew up in. Everything else seemed really corny to me. And I got to say that this movie is probably the corniest Star Trek thing I've ever seen. And it coincides timeline wise with like it came out a handful of months before Ronald D. Moore's first script for Star Trek The Next Generation was accepted. And that represented a turning of the tide of that show, where that show was no longer corny anymore. And it injected new life into the Star Trek franchise. And I just want to give a big shout out to Ronald D. Moore, because if it weren't for him, you probably would have never had any good Star Trek again after this. So
honestly, though, I've seen every episode of the syndicated ones at least once, and that's some great TV. And there was a concerted effort to make it all one world, which the movies follow until now. It's streaming; they changed everything. But I thought it's just brilliant. It's the largest canon out there, and honestly, Seth, well, let me ask you, Judy. Judy, if you had to be any Star Trek character, what would you be? Man, woman, or Kardashian?
I limited knowledge of the Star Trek world. So I don't know. I'd prefer to do, I like costumes. So something that could, make me look like a sci-fi character.
Deanna Troi.
Or like a half robot would be fun. It's actually like a dream of mine.
Or
I don't want to play humans.
So Borg or like Iran.
Yeah, something. I'd have
Romulans are
one
cool.
eye. I'd have one eye and 3 boobs. That would be great.
Nice. Abram, what if you had to be a Star Trek character? Which one would you choose out of the whole?
Definitely. I mean, it would have to be Dr. Spock, without a doubt.
Nice. It's a good one.
I mean, I happen
to be. I have
to
that vision in my mind now.
Yeah, I happen to be a Cohen anyway, which is the symbol that he. I mean, that's a whole long story. I don't even know.
You know what's
worth telling, but
a good
where this whole thing came from, most people don't know. But I'll tell the story. So this hand gesture with 2 hands like that, it's a hand gesture that the priests of the Jewish temple they would do to bless the whole community. So as a priestly, this is used for the priestly blessing.
And you weren't allowed to see it, right? As
what?
a kid?
Yeah, you're not supposed to look at it. You're not actually supposed to look directly at the Kohanim or the priests when they do that. A lot of people mistakenly thought that Leonard Nimoy did this because he was a priest and he knew how to do it, and his father taught him how to do it and whatever. But actually, it's not true. He was a little kid, and they told him not to look, and he peeked underneath the prayer shawl of the priests when they were doing it. But I would have to be Dr. Spock, because I am a priest. I'm actually a Cohen, and I have performed that ritual many times in temple. So I can't think of any more appropriate character than him for myself. And besides the fact that I cannot lie, and I'm super logical, and I always bring logic to bear on any conversation, and I crush all of my opponents and adversaries with compassion and logic. And it's just a rare gift of mine. So I don't think there's any other character that would be appropriate for me.
Seth?
I would like to be a Delton. Those are the ones that have to take a vow of celibacy, so they don't have sex with anyone except other Deltons while they're on board, because they're so sexually fulfilled that they kill other people.
Yeah. That's hot, man.
I'd be a Delton.
That's hot.
That's pretty good.
Let me mention one thing about Leonard Nimoy and how he made every actor's career better. Because he grew up poor and he was a working actor. He took every job he could in the 70s. There was no Star Trek, but they used Spock's likeness. Like CBS used Spock's likeness, sold it to advertisers. So there's that. They did a lot of that Spock stuff. While Spock was making Leonard Nimoy was making a lot of personal appearances as Spock, raking in the dough there. And he never turned down a thing. I saw a documentary. He said he never turned down a gig to play Spock. So in the late 70s, Leonard was like, wait a second, you guys are making all that money on a character I helped build. You can't do that. That's my likeness. Big court battle. That's why motion picture in 1980 was delayed because Leonard didn't know if he would win the case, and if he lost the case, he wouldn't be Spock. But he won the case, so he played Spock. That's why it was late. So Paramount could.
Did
have
he make
something
money
at Empire
off
Strikes
of?
Back.
Did he like get a big payout from the?
It was undisclosed, so I don't know.
So they had a settlement of some sort.
Yes.
Or he actually won a case, because if it's
Well,
undisclosed,
he won with an out of court settlement.
Okay.
You know, like they like settled, and he was happy. So
Okay, cool.
now as an actor, and that in 1985 when Crispin Glover played George McFly, they cited the Leonard Nimoy case because Crispin sued Warner Brothers in '89 over using his likeness in Back to the Future Part 2. So he Leonard made all that because they cited that case. That's my likeness. You can't use that without me. And he won, and there he goes. So God bless Leonard Nimoy.
I like the story that Leonard Nimoy's father was a barber in Boston, and he told Leonard that you're never going to make a penny as an actor. I don't know what, you should learn to play an accordion so you can go to like bar mitzvahs and like play the accordion there. But at the time of Star Trek's height, the guy was still the father was still a barber. So kids were coming in and going, I need a Spock haircut.
And the eyebrows, they turn up the eyebrows too.
He must have loved that though.
Yeah.
Probably. No, he did. He had a picture of Leonard up on the mirror, and kids would come in from Boston, like around, like 11, I guess, years. I don't know how big the gap of Spock being cool was, but kids would come in and be like, I want a Spock haircut.
Leonard Nimoy wrote a book. He wrote a book in the 70s called I Am Not Spock. He wrote a book in the 70s. Then he wrote another book in the 80s called I Am
Spock. Yeah.
Make up your mind.
Well, hey man, you got to do right by him. He did create the likeness and stuff. He wasn't the only one that created the character, but that's what Spock looks like. You can't use that without me getting a piece. So,
So, why is this an obscure film? Because nobody likes it.
So obscure. It's a kid's.
Well, that's what I said in my introduction. In my introduction, I had to find a way to justify this film, and I think it's obscure for no other reason than the fact that it is like Star Trek is a household name, and we should probably never do a film with a name like Star Trek ever again, or Conan for that matter. But
like or Vegas.
But
what I mean is it doesn't sound appropriate. But the fact that nobody that I talked to about it had ever seen it or even heard of it, I think it definitely it deserves to be considered an obscure
I mean the fact
film.
that the fans pretend that the film doesn't
that it never exists.
It's fantastic.
If you watch Star Trek 6, it picks up with a through line from Star Trek 4. That is as if the fifth one never happened at all.
They moved on.
Kirk, who has been saved by the Klingons in 5, now hates them again in 6 for killing his son, and he'll never forgive them.
Oh, right. And let me add one more thing. There's an article on Rotten Tomatoes that gives a synopsis of every single Star Trek film ever made, from worst film to best film, and this is at the top of the list. So this is the worst Star Trek film ever made, according to everyone.
Even if it's a kid's movie, Sean, it's a fact.
Hey, Labyrinth is a kid's movie.
Yeah,
that people thought, that the critics thought were terrible.
But that's a good one.
History has proven otherwise. The critics were wrong. But the critics aren't always wrong. Sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it, man. It's cool. I just wanted to give everybody an ample chance to throw some dirt on my grave.
It's not one of those movies that you can really get angry at, though. I mean, in 2022. Well, of course, because it's like so much time has passed. It's water under the bridge. You know, if you're I thought
I read that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read that it said that it was the highest grossing Star Trek film on its opening night and weekend, but it quickly sank after.
Wow. By word of mouth.
it double. I think it was.
or just
I
by
have to look it up, but it was like
brand
made for 30
recognition.
million and grossed 60 million, but a lot of that was in the opening weekend, and then it just tanked.
Well, I
Yeah, I
remember
think I
back
saw
in the
something like
day, a
that.
lot of people would run to go see a movie before the critics came out
Yeah.
with their thing on Friday. So you would go Thursday or Friday before the reviews were out on Friday or Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes, yeah, the critics could kill a very high peaking gross. You know, now everyone's got buzz about a movie long before
Yeah.
it even gets out of the gate. So.
In many respects, it's better today. But anyway, we're at 50-minute mark. Let's wrap this up and let Seth tell us about our next movie.
So, in continuing with the sci-fi genre,
Nice.
and in continuing with movies that I really like and Sean really didn't, Mad God. We're gonna watch Mad God, which was I think he started it in 1988 and finished it in 2020. It's
2021.
2021. It's Phil Tippett. He was once the master of stop motion, and then Jurassic Park came around and nobody wanted to do stop motion anymore. And this is what happens when you have a choice: kill yourself or continue making a movie based off your dreams. So Mad God has a lot going for it, and you'll see next week when we talk about Mad God, the darkest stop motion movie since Frank Zappa's was it Mr.
The Amazing Mr. Bickford.
Amazing Mr. Bickle.
The greatest
So
stop motion animation film ever made. Let's watch the trailer.
Is it a
real quick.
2021 film then?
Yeah, 2021. That's where you'll
Okay.
find it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can see it on big screens in some places though. Still.
Oh, okay.
Let's have a look, huh? Shall we?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really short trailer.
It's a short trailer.
Let me just make sure that I have it expanded enough.
This is cool that we can do this now.
Yes.
It's horror, it says.
Yes, it's horror.
It's horror.
Yeah, it's
Oh, you said it was sci-fi.
No,
It's both.
It's both.
Okay.
Well, what do I know? I haven't seen it.
Here we go.
Oh,
It's
let's get the
muted.
volume going. Yep, I see that. Thank you.
Kathleen Kennedy. That was a quote from Kathleen Kennedy. Guillermo del Toro. Wow.
If you're a babysitter and you haven't shown your children Mad God, what's wrong with you?
It kind of reminds
could
me a
change
little bit
somebody's
of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Is that
Oh,
what
it definitely has.
it's like got a very Tim Burton feel.
Yeah, it's got a very Tim Burton on a bad acid trip kind of.
It looked like
Yeah.
a. Guys, remember City of Lost Children?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's like
it
that.
did
It reminded
have some
me
of
of.
that vibe.
Imagine like someone taking the Island of Misfit Toys from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and
Mhm.
throwing it into Escape from New York. It's kind of like that. It's definitely obscure, definitely different.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, looking
Yeah.
forward to it. So we'll see you guys next week with Mad God.
And it's
And-
short, so if you want to bring anything else to the discussion, I don't think Mad God is longer than what.
How long is it?
It
I
said
think
an
it's only
hour
like-
24.
it's an
So
hour
84
24.
minutes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, it's not that
Yeah.
short.
not
But-
that short, but not that long either.
All right. Cool.
All right, cool.
Peace out.
Peace out.